Greetings from the English Literature YouTube channel. It is a one-stop destination to soothe all your literary curiosities. In this video, we'll read the various forms and varieties of prose. So let's start. The French poet, essayist, and philosopher Paul Valéry compared prose to walking and verse to dancing. Let's differentiate between prose and verse. So the prose is written naturally and the verse is written in a metrical structure. Prose refers to language in its original and natural form. On the other hand, verse refers to the language used in poetry. The verse is the more stylized form, while prose is functional and is also used for non-literary purposes. But this doesn't mean that prose is a lower form. It can employ all the rhetorical techniques like simile, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, understatement, irony, etc. that verse uses. Prose too can be rhythmic, though rhythm in prose is different from the music of poetry. Literary genres can use either prose or verse. Traditionally, the epic has always been in verse, but the qualities of an epic can be found in Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, written in prose. The novel is usually written in prose, but the great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin wrote the novel Eugene Onegin in verse. Inspired by him, Vikram Seth has written a novel in the form of sonnets, The Golden Gate. Drama can be either in verse or prose. Greek drama and Elizabethan drama followed the tradition of writing in verse. Shakespeare's tragedies are great poetic dramas, but has many prose passages in his comedies, which are interspersed with songs. Modern English drama is in prose. T.S. Eliot is the only playwright to successfully attempt poetic drama. Do you know from where the word prose is derived? The word prose is derived from the Latin word which means direct or straightforward. Let's study forms of non-fictional prose. So there are different literary forms of prose: the short story and the novel, the fictional forms of prose also, which we do not concern here. We shall devote our attention to the main non-fictional forms: the essay, biography and autobiography, and the travelogue. Let's talk about essays. So essay is derived from the French word meaning attempt. Essay is a prose composition of moderate length devoted to some particular topic. Essays are of two types: formal essays and personal essays. Formal essays. Essays written by scholars in any field with the sole purpose of conveying ideas are called formal essays. It is also referred to as articles. It discusses the topic concerned in an objective and impersonal manner. Its primary purpose is to impart knowledge. What is personal essay? So the personal essay written in a light style and seeks to entertain the reader. The style of the essay is often conversational. It can be anecdotal and generally reveals the personality of the author. In English literature, the essay of Ella written by Charles Lamb are famous specimens of the personal essay. Now let's talk about biography. A biography is the story of the life of an individual. Unlike history, which concentrates on facts and figures, a biography tries to project the personality of the subject. helping the reader to share that person's hopes and fears. A biography can cover the whole life of the subject from birth to death and even discuss his reputation after his death. Our next topic is autobiography. In an autobiography, the author is his own biographer, so it tends to be more subjective. Events are seen through the consciousness of the protagonist. Another big difference between a biography and an autobiography is that an autobiography is more selective in the incidents it describes. It is necessarily incomplete, but has the great advantage of presenting events at first hand. The writer can describe what he has experienced personally. Travelogue. A travelogue is an account of the writer's travels. In this autobiographical account, the focus is on the places and people he has met in his travels, not on the events in the author's own life or his personality. English literature has a strong tradition of travelogues and has many travelogues, starting with Dean Muhammad's The Travels of Dean Muhammad through several parts of India. Let us now examine the different varieties of prose employed by writers, whether in fiction or in non-fiction. So there are three main varieties of prose: descriptive, narrative, and expository prose. These are not exclusive categories. A writer may use two or all three types in the same passage. Let's read about descriptive prose. So, descriptive prose can be used to describe a person, a thing, or a place. A good description vividly recreates the object or event in such a way that we feel that we ourselves have seen, heard, or experienced it. Some descriptions can be impressionistic, that is, they present things from a very personal point of view and also reveals the sensibility of the person who is observing it. On the other hand, we can have descriptions, especially of places, which have a kind of photographic realism that when we read the passage, we feel we are looking at photographs or videotapes of the place. Let's move towards narrative prose. Narrative prose describes events and deals with the incidents that happen over the course of time. Narration can be slow or fast. It can be exciting, colorful, and highlighted, or matter of fact and factual. It can be highly imaginative or purely objective. A narrative can deal with external happenings, public events, or interpersonal relationships. The writer can also narrate internal events, the changing feelings and emotions. Non-fictional prose forms like biographies, autobiographies, and travelogues deal with factual narratives, while novels and short stories deal with events born of the writer's imagination. Of course, there can be no rigid rule. Good historical novels incorporate a lot of historical facts into the narrative, while autobiographies can be so imaginative that the facts are not important. When we have a kind of fiction based on actual events, such a novel is called a faction, fact plus fiction, or non-fictional novel. What is expository prose? Expository prose defines or explains a subject. Scholarly writing on science, technology, philosophy, religion, political science, economics, etc. falls under the category of expository prose. It presents details concretely and clearly in a logical sequence. The aim of the writer is not to describe something or narrate a story, but to present facts and ideas. Good writers use many devices to present their subject effectively. These include the use of examples to illustrate their point, varying their tone, narrating interesting anecdotes, presenting analogies in support of their argument, and use of figure of speech like simile, metaphor, and personification. Much of non-fictional prose is explicatory in nature, but this doesn't mean that expository prose has no place in fiction. Many great novels, such as Tolstoy's, present the writer's view on life and society. Whether it is fictional or non-fictional, prose should be read as closely as verse. In analyzing prose, we should examine the diction of the writer, the words he uses, the range of his vocabulary, the syntax, and the structure of the sentences. Are they short or long? Does he use simple sentences or does he prefer complex sentences with many clauses and qualifying parenthetical comments? The Victorians had perfected the periodic sentences, long, elaborate sentences with many balanced clauses. We should also examine rhythm, how the sentences flow, the structure of paragraphs, and the writer's use of punctuation, which reveal his style. But it is not possible to analyze this style in isolation from the meaning. The literary meaning of anything depends on how it is said. A simple paraphrase of what is said does not constitute the full meaning of the text under analysis. So here we end our discussion. If you like this video, click on the like button, share with your friends and subscribe for more such videos. Thanks for watching.